Hello and welcome back to the Rosberg podcast. Today's episode is sponsored by BJJ Camp Tenerife. BJJ Camp Tenerife is the brainchild of UK Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu legend Ben Poppleton, who you will recognize because he was on the podcast a couple of episodes ago. If you haven't heard it already, I recommend you go check that out. Ben runs these camps, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu camps in Tenerife, which is obviously an excellent location to be doing a little bit of rolling around on the floor. And his next Tenerife camp is going to be in September, October of this year. He's doing 2 weeks. The first week he is essentially been co-hosting it with judo legend Steve Gorthorpe. That's going to be in the gi from the 30th of September to the 4th of October. Second week, I'm going to be jumping on board and helping out. It's going to be me and Ben, and that's going to be from the 7th of October to the 11th of October, and it's all going to be no gi. Incredibly reasonably priced. It's £300 for one of the weeks and £500 for both weeks. So really looking forward to doing that, and hopefully see some of you guys there. If you are interested, then you can check it out, get all the information and book on at bjjcamptenerife.com. Today's episode, I am joined by Australian Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu legend John Will. John was the first ever Australian to get a black belt. He is pretty much the godfather of Australian Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's been training for 30 years, I think. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for 30 years. He's a lifelong martial artist, an incredibly interesting guy, and just by chance had the opportunity to sit down and chat to him. I saw over social media that he was in the UK and he was coming down south as I was going up north, so I managed to catch him in the middle and managed to sit down and chat to him for a couple of hours, and really enjoyed it. Very interesting guy, and I hope you guys enjoy listening. Check it out. That's it. The worst is you get all the good stuff before we even start recording. So you know what? Carry on exactly where you were.
Really? You
yeah, absolutely. Let's hear it.
Okay, we're talking about Scottish people. I've got a Scottish black belt, Steve Stevenson. He's a hard guy from Glasgow, came out to Australia a long time ago. You know, black belt in karate. He's best mate of Rick Young's.
Okay.
Rick Young's best ex-mate. BJJ black belt, judo black belt, good boxer. And we were walking along after a seminar on the street in Perth, in Australia. And these three Aboriginal guys come walking on the footpath looking for a bit of trouble. They go, hey, give us some money. He goes, fuck off. And they look, they stop, they turn around like it's going to kick off, and he goes, stroll on, laddies, or I give you a fucking leverin'. I'm sure they do not know what language he spoke.
But it was scary.
They were so stunned by their, like, they just went, they bailed, they bottled out, off they went. But it was just, I was just pissing myself laughing. Scottish. My God. Stroll on.
I think it's a pretty intimidating accent, you know.
Right.
You want to, and they're pretty hard people, you know.
Yeah.
Do you watch Game of Thrones?
I have seen it, yes.
You know, they're like the Northerners, okay? They're the tough ones. You don't want to fuck with the Scottish.
I saw a map of England. I saw a map of England somewhere.
Like relative to Game of Thrones?
No, just relative to toughness. And
okay,
it was like, you know, below, down south, below England, still lives with mummy and daddy. And then up there, kind of well off. And then a little bit higher, you think you're the north, but you're not. And then the real north, hard as fuck. And then it was very funny. Yeah. And maybe to some degree accurate.
I think it's pretty accurate. You don't want to screw with the Scottish people. That's the one thing I know. Anyway, firstly, thank you very, very much for us being able to make this happen. You know, you were traveling down south and I was traveling up north, and we managed to find ourselves in the middle. And I really appreciate you coming on and giving me a little bit of your time. So I didn't even know that you were over there, and I was talking to Seymour, and he said one thing to me. He was like, this guy was training jiu-jitsu before UFC 1. You know, this is kind of...
Yeah.
You know, not trying to make you feel old or anything, but you've been training jiu-jitsu for a very, very long time. Is that correct?
Yes. And it is weird that last night I was training up in Liverpool, and there's a bunch of kids there, and I was talking about like pre-internet, you know, and they said, what? there was a pre-internet? Yeah, they didn't believe me. I don't think they believed me that there was a pre-internet. Yeah. Yes, yeah. So before the UFC, it was maybe about 1986. So what's that?
Is when you started training?
Yeah, so that's 6 years prior to UFC.
So
easy pickings back then.
that really is very, very early. So how did you get into jiu-jitsu? What was your first experience with it?
Well, I left school, wasn't an academic, didn't like that. Had a hero, Don Drager. Don't know if you know him. Some of the older crew would know him. Wrote a bunch of books. He was an American Marine he was given the task of cataloguing martial arts throughout Southeast Asia way back in the 60s. He travelled all over the world, Mongolia, India, Indonesia extensively, training. And he was one of my heroes when I was a kid. I used to do wrestling and taekwondo and the usual gamut of things, trying to cross-train, cobble it together.
But this was like you were trying to cross-train before there was really cross-training as a concept.
Yeah.
Before MMA came about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, yeah. So I when I left school, I travelled to Indonesia, and trained throughout Southeast Asia, Indonesia, wrestled in India, kickboxed in Thailand, went to Japan, karate, all that kind of stuff.
Wow.
I did that for about 8 years, eking a living, doing nefarious things. And I eventually came back to Australia. I started a martial arts magazine. Do you want to know why?
Yeah, go on.
Hardly anyone knows this. So this is a good story.
Perfect.
Quickly. There was a martial arts magazine called Australasian Fighting Arts way back then. And I wrote a story about cross-training. Like, I think we should be striking, grappling. We should be doing everything right because that's how fights are. I knew that from my experience in the world.
Yeah.
And you end up on the ground and you end up punching him in the face. That's what happens every time. So we should be cross-training. And I wrote this article and I got some serious flack from the, big knobs in the martial arts community. What the hell would you know? You're just a kid, blah, blah, blah. So I wrote back a scathing reply because they had a go at me. So I wrote back a reply.
This was the magazine had a go at you?
Yes.
Wow.
Because those top guys that everyone knew were friends of the editor. So I wrote back a reply to their reply and they refused to publish it. So I became incensed. Perhaps I overreacted a touch because I went down within about 10 minutes of them saying, no, you're never appearing in our magazine again. I found myself at a magazine publishing house saying, how much does it cost to make 10,000 magazines? And they said, it's about $10,000. And I thought, well, if I could run around in my car and get $10,000 worth of advertising, I'm going to print one issue and take these guys out. I want my thing published, right?
Yeah.
So I did that. And 8 issues later, I put them out of business.
Wow.
Then I was sick of it and just gave it away. Like, job done, right? But so that, anyway, long story short, that's how Blitz magazine started, which was Australia's biggest martial art.
Just out of revenge.
Pure revenge, yes. I have now grown up. While I was doing that, editing that magazine, I heard about some Brazilians, one came out, surfer, Marcelo Beiring, came out to Australia. He was a surfer, put a challenge out, $50,000 winner take all. But this is back in...
Fight.
Yes, 1980, I forget, 1985? Wow. That wasn't happening at that point.
Yeah.
So they intrigued me. No one took him up on the offer, of course. Who had $50,000, So no one took him up.
Some crazy Brazilian.
He didn't have it. He was just confident.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like $50,000, a crazy Brazilian? No,
I'm okay. Sound legit, doesn't it? So anyway, I went to America very shortly after that and to train at the Jet Center, Benny the Jet, train the Jet Center and Gene LeBell, do some wrestling, and, just training. But when I was over there, I said, there's this Brazilian guy somewhere. Have you ever heard of him? And I asked around. And at the Jet Center, someone said, I think it was Chuck Norris. I think Chuck told me.
That's such a subtle name drop.
Yes. No, he was hanging out at the Jet Center. He's a very good friend of Benny the Jet, Benny Urquidez. And but in those times, there was Pete Cunningham, Howard Jackson, world karate champion, Gene LeBell. They were all hanging out. Like, it was just normal. It was really cool. Yeah. And I was just this, young kid from Australia. So I guess they gave me a bit of time. I had novelty value.
Sure.
And they said, I think there's some guys in Torrance. You should go and do a lesson. And
that was the Gracies.
That was Horian.
Wow.
So I rocked up there and started BJJ. I just did 5 lessons.
Wow. So that was in 86.
86, yes.
And you were just going over it very, very quickly, but you have an insane background in lots of different martial arts.
Well, yeah. I trained in a lot of different things. I was always curious and interested in everything martial arty.
Yeah.
But Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, the complexity of it is, the simplicity of it got me there. I mean, you only have to, as you know, you only have to do a couple of months of BJJ in a world of people that don't do BJJ, and you're up,
Yeah.
So
it's like a superpower.
Right? It's a superpower. So after I got that superpower.
And back then it must have been even more of a superpower because, there's one thing having a superpower that everyone knows exists, and there's another one having a superpower that not very many people know. We're talking 93 when UFC 1 came out was the introduction of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to the rest of to grappling and the effectiveness of grappling to the rest of the world. In the 80s, this must have been witchcraft to a lot of people.
Yeah, it probably was. They all got shocked. I really quickly, it's kind of a boring story, I guess, but I did 5 lessons with Horian, and you can imagine they just taught me, how to pass the guard with your arm in really deep, stuff like that, weird things that you look at now and go, what the hell?
Yeah.
And it was very expensive. It was $100 a class.
Wow.
Private lesson in that. It was all my money. I didn't have.
You were just doing one-to-ones with Horian?
1-to-1.
Okay.
5 days. Did 5 lessons. Cost me my life savings plus $100, which I borrowed off some friends.
Wow.
But the last day I was there, he couldn't teach me. Luckily for me, he said, my cousin is in from Brazil.
Okay.
His name is Machado. He'll teach you today. Didn't speak a word of English, but he's passionate and into it, right? And that works way better than English. He was wanting me to get it. So he trained me, and I thought, that's a great lesson, even though we know a word of English.
Sure.
I ran out of money, went back home, 6 months, 8 months or something, teaching martial arts, in a basement, doing little things, bits and pieces, earn enough money. My plan is to go to Brazil. I figured in Brazil, it's free. It wasn't true, but
it's a lot less money.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not $100 an hour. That's bullshit. Anyway, so I earned enough money to come back. I came back to LA. My intention to go get one more lesson off Horian and get an address in Brazil. I rock up there. He says, can't teach you again. My cousin's still here. He'll teach you. I walk in. Hagen remembers me, says, my Australian friend, because they give him a kangaroo T-shirt and a boomerang, something. He goes, my Aussie friend, yeah. He says, listen, come here. Don't train here. Don't train here. This is no good. Go to Brazil.
Oh,
that's what he said.
Yeah. Wow.
Not exactly. It was slightly worse than that. But anyway, and I said, yes, that's my plan. He said, I'm going Wednesday. Come with me.
Wow.
I couldn't go Wednesday because I didn't have a plane ticket that quick, but I went Friday. And I rock up in Brazil, walking through the airport to greet me, wearing their gis, is Hagen Machado, Carlos Machado, Hillian Gracie, I think Henzo, who was a purple belt at the time.
Wow.
And they're in their gis, Daniel. Like, I'm thinking, what the hell? And Hagen's got one pant rolled up to his leg and his knee. I think, what planet am I on? That was the beginning.
Wow.
And they just become, good friends of mine, and we hang out and went up to Teresopolis training. And the normal crew were everyone, like a lot of names that people would know now.
Were they still training in Teresopolis? Teresopolis. Were they still training there at the time? Or living there?
No. That's where Carlos Gracie Sr. lived. Yeah. And they had a cousin called Crawlin Gracie, and he had a farm up there. Yeah. And they're all together. Gracie's and Machado's cousins. So they're all, there's all. And so they go up there on weekends, and we'd go up there, have a barbecue, and then just train 6 hours a day each day. And I was just this idiot gringo with these legendary guys who I didn't know they were legends. Yeah. I just thought they were seemed to be okay at jiu-jitsu.
In the 80s, were they legends at that point? You kind of think that actually they hadn't even been raised to that sort of pedestal yet because nobody knew what jiu-jitsu was.
No, in Brazil.
In Brazil they were legends.
Yeah, because at that time Hagen was national champion with 365-0. That was his record.
Wow.
At that time. So he was the one. They owned Vajra Gracie. Yeah. You call Vajra here, right?
Yes.
Vajra. They owned Vajra Gracie back before it was like what it is now, a franchisee kind of thing. But right at that point, there was just one in Vajra.
Yeah, I've been there, yeah.
Right. So on Espaço Vital, I'm not sure if it's still there up on the,
Yeah, and in the sports complex.
Right. Yeah. So that was owned by Hagen Machado, Carlos Machado, a girl called Daniela Dutra, who was a purple belt, you need a girl because none of the guys can organise anything. So she was the smart one.
Sure.
And then Carlos Gracie Jr. was the fourth partner.
Wow.
And so they were all, but Hegan was teaching.
Yeah.
That was it. Hegan was the coach.
Really?
Everyone come there to learn off him, like a lot of guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it was when the Machados eventually went to America 3 or 4 years later, that's when Carlos Gracie Jr. they gave it to him.
Okay.
The Vajra Gracie.
Yeah.
And then he did whatever he did with it.
Yeah,
So,
blew it up.
yeah, it did. Yeah. Well, I guess, well after the UFC. And I don't think it blew up straight away. I remember UFC, the first one coming out, people still thinking it was a fluke. And we were going, oh, we'll have a fight. Throw down $40, I'll give $40. You put $40. Back choke. So, so boring, right?
Yeah.
Like double leg, takedown, mount, slap, back choke. I just made $80. We can go and eat. we were doing that regularly, like every couple of days because we were penniless.
Yeah.
And
were you living in Brazil at the time?
No, I was in America at that time. Yeah,
you were living in America.
I was training. I go there 4 months training, come home. But, that's
quite long periods of time though.
That's right.
Yeah.
With no money, you're just trying to figure out how to make a living. Or, how to eke survival. And it was a few years after the UFC before everyone caught on.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, 94 or 95.
People had to accept that this was the reality now.
But
reality.
even those people, Daniel, were martial artists.
Yeah.
There was no normal humans doing B to J in the mid-90s. They were only guys like you or guys who would seek it out and go, this is interesting, mostly challenging, coming in the door going, what's this bullshit? And then we'd go crunch, smash. And there was an endless stream of them.
The challenge matches.
Endless stream until about probably until about 2 or 3 UFCs.
Yeah.
Then they all just went away. I don't know where they went. They probably picked on the Taekwondo guys. But they stopped coming to the mat. So it was kind of funny. Gene LeBell brought quite a few in. That was pretty weird.
So do you have any cool stories of, like, were you there to witness a lot of these challenge matches?
I was doing it. Like
you were the one who was representing jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, quite a lot.
Really?
Yeah, a lot of the time.
How many challenge matches do you think you had?
Oh my goodness, I don't know. Dozens.
Really?
Yeah, but they were just people, karate guys or tough guys.
So
thinking,
what would the
grab them and
what would the protocol be for these? Would it be they come like talk me through your standard?
They come in there,
challenge match.
They're wearing a t-shirt with baggy tracksuit pants, and you say, "What's your name?" And they say something like Sifu, and you go, "Fuck, what's your mother call you?" And he goes, "Sifu." So then you say, "Well, your name's Sifu, dickhead." And then, okay, can we have a go? What can I do? I said, "Do what you want," and then well, you know what you do. You change levels and
you put them on their back,
put them on their back and mount them, and then they don't know what's happening, and then you choke them. And then what happens is they say, "Can we go again?"
Yeah. You do the same thing,
and we did the same thing. But it was after a lot of that, it eventually occurred to us that that's not fair because they're saying they're getting off lightly.
Yeah,
they just tap, you let them go. But they're trying to punch you in the face and kick you in. So that's not really fair. So that we I think Cesar Gracie, I think it was Cesar. Cesar was a purple belt, and Cesar he says, this is bullshit. We give them one free one where they get off at the tap. After that,
you make them pay.
they're gonna get choked out. They're gonna get their arms snapped off. They're gonna get So that we started doing that.
So you used to just punch them in the face a lot?
I honestly didn't do it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I just.
But some people would.
He slapped him a bit lightly. I wasn't vindictive about it because me, it was just fun, right? So I wasn't.
Sure.
Cesar Gracie was a little bit more.
Yeah, I know Brazilians kind of they don't take too kindly to the kind of disrespect. I remember there was that story with Hickson and goddamn, I can't remember who it was. The Japanese guy. Like one of the most famous challenge matches in Gracie history, and he comes to the gym, signs the waiver, and they have this battle, and he beats the absolute shit out of him, and he comes back the next day with flowers, showing respect to Hickson and all of that stuff. Yeah, but
I think people,
I wouldn't want to do a challenge match with a prime Hickson Gracie.
No, I don't think. Look, I don't think it wasn't certainly what I was mucking around. It was just martial artists wanting to have test it out. So it's not like a street fight. In that there was no hatred or not really vindictive or anything like that.
Yeah.
So I don't think it warranted a
real beatdown.
No. It was just guys like me, I guess, just being curious, right? Yeah. So it was like that. And most of the time it was good, except for the odd occasion when there was an idiot. Someone would be
too aggressive or
trying to
bad
really
attitude.
hurt you, and you go, okay, that's it. You're going to get your arm dislocated or something. So that happened.
Fair enough.
I remember one guy, Bart Vale. His name was Bart Vale. He came in. He was world shoot fighting champ at the time. Very big, like nearly 6'11"
Wow.
or something. I remember like hardly got through the door.
Wow.
Do you know who John English was, the musician?
No.
Anyway, looked like him. Long hair, dark eyes, like could be look. And when he came in, we went, oh shit, like a big guy, right? And he just come on the mat. Said, he didn't say anything. Sat down. Gene LeBell brought him in, and sat on the side. And then he said, Someone said, Hegan, jump out. So Hegan steps out on the mat in his tracksuit pants and a t-shirt, no geese. And this guy comes out, and they're going to wrestle, right? They start moving around, and this guy throws a head kick. And Hegan kind of just fades back.
Yeah.
Kick goes past his head at 100 mile an hour. And I remember his brother Johnny, who's a little bit fiery, says, Hegan, é porrada. Like, Hegan, it's a fight.
Yeah.
And Hegan just went, Hegan's very friendly, but he just went suddenly dark.
Bulldog mode, yeah.
Yeah, he went mode, and then he just went thump, takedown, mount, and the guy turned over, took his back. I was wondering, he said, John, film it. I'm filming. But now I'm not looking, I'm now looking at the fight, and I'm filming my foot. Like, not good. So the camera's back on them. He's near it, but they're near a window. And I remember thinking, why doesn't he just choke him right now? Anyway, he didn't, slid off, leg over the head, rolled and armbarred, right? And broke his arm.
Wow.
Cracked it in half. And the guy's sitting over there with a broken arm, like moaning and groaning. And Gene LeBell just abandoned the guy, sits down and starts chatting to us about training. Like, I left the guy sit in the chair in agony for 30 minutes before he took him to the hospital. But later on, I said to Hegan, why did you not choke the guy's back? And Hegan says, that we were right next to a window, like 6 foot away from the window. I don't know. Maybe the guy might panic, stand up, jump through the window, we're a floor up. So I thought I'd better break his arm instead. I thought,
that's a strange train of thought that go through your head at that exact moment.
Right.
I don't want to go for the RNC because he might jump out the window with me on his back.
Right. So there's just the funny little things like that. They kind of, I went, oh my goodness, Hegan, he's weird. My friend's weird.
You find a lot of those in
I would have
jiu-jitsu.
choked him.
Yeah. You've mentioned Gene LeBell a few times. For those who don't know, like a really legendary figure in judo and wrestling as well. Catch wrestling, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, judo. Yeah, he famous for doing a fight against Milo Savage as a boxer, judo versus boxer. Way back in the day, in the prohibition.
One of the really early days of like pre-MMA, like Vadi Tudo still,
and national judo champion, and then judo, and then stuntman.
What was it like training with him?
It was interesting. He ran a small class out of LACC, which is Los Angeles Community College, which he teaches, perhaps even still, like he never stopped doing it. Every Tuesday night, he'd teach a free class. Didn't cost any money. Hardly anyone there. 8 guys would turn up. Gokor Chavichian was his golden boy, turn up there. And you could turn up, and just train. He was really nice. He invited me around for dinner one night. I was around his house and we had dinner, and I said, this is when I first went, before Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah.
For me.
Okay.
Right? One of the reasons why I was really interested. Went to his house. I said, Gene, is this like sleeper hold in pro wrestling? Is that real? He goes, what do you mean? Of course it's real. I go, really? He goes, want me to show you?
Come here.
Right. So we go upstairs, away from his wife. And he says, and my friend's there, a guy called Stan Longanides. Stan Longanides was world kickboxing champion. Very, very great martial artist. He's sitting there. Gene slaps on the back choke, says, count to 10, 10, 9, 8. I'm out, right? I wake up. When you wake up from a choke, it's like you're a bit freaked out.
You don't know what's going on.
So I've woken up. And then Gene LeBell's ugly face is 2 foot above mine. I think I screamed like a little girl. Like that. I look over the side. There's my mate, Stan Longanides, world kickboxing champion, standing up on the couch like he'd seen a mouse. He thought I was dead. Because right?
The first time you see someone unconscious from a choke, you think that they're dead.
They're dead. Stan thinks I'm dead. Gene's laughing. And then I suddenly remember where I am. And on my chest is a gold coin, a 1 ounce solid silver, specially minted gold coin that says you've been choked out by Gene LeBell.
Get out.
I've still got it.
Yeah. You serious?
Yeah. He was, I mean, it was an ounce of silver.
No.
Pretty cool. Now it's a badge, I think, or a patch or something. But yeah, it was a memento.
That is fucking hilarious.
It was very cool.
He had custom-made coins for when he choked someone out conscious.
With a little caricature of his face on it.
That's one of the best things that I've ever heard. That is genius.
Right, who does that? Gene. I've seen him do some funny things. One time we were at a convention in Las Vegas. They have a martial arts school owners convention, mostly for karate people and stuff to make, how to do business things.
Yeah.
And I used to go there and teach, and then probably for half a dozen, 6 or 7 years, and then teach all of Chuck Norris's black belts. He'd get 400 of them, and go there and teach them all. Me and a guy called David Meyer, another black belt in America, one of the first ones.
Yeah.
And we used to do this every year. But Gene LeBell was over there at this convention, and the owner, the guy who was running the whole convention, not the Chuck Norris thing that was off to the side, but the guy who was running the martial arts convention, his name, I forget his name, but he ran Century Martial Arts. It's like they sell martial arts gear. They give Gene LeBell an award, Lifetime Achievement. They walk, Gene walks out. There's a whole lot of people in the audience, 500 of them. He shakes Gene's hand. Gene arm drags him, takes his back, chokes him unconscious on stage, takes his wallet out, takes his money out of his wallet and starts throwing it into the audience. Now I don't know, Daniel, whether it was set up, but it's just so Gene LeBell. I strongly suspect that was not a planned part of the event. He's a wonderful.
The question is, when that guy woke up, did he have a coin on his chest?
Probably not. That was quite a bit later. That was like, when silver got value. Yeah. Maybe a Bitcoin.
He sounds like a crazy character.
He's a character.
Yeah.
And beloved.
Yeah.
Beloved in America.
Yeah. And you mentioned Chuck Norris a few times already. So, since you're name dropping big names like that,
I don't mean.
What was your experience with Chuck Norris? Because obviously Chuck Norris is well known for having that lineage through the Machado. So
yes.
would have been on a similar path as yourself.
He's a really lovely person. The nature of him. I'm impressed by people about what kind of person they're like, not what kind of martial artist they are and this and that.
Sure.
To me, he was a great guy. Okay, so I was teaching him one time in Torrance, not in Torrance, I'm sorry, in Encino, in the valley.
You were teaching him jiu-jitsu?
Yes.
Okay.
So I was teaching him and a guy called Howard Jackson, who was a karate guy, an old school karate guy, world champion, fantastic fighter. Anyway, every time I think one of these guys, there's a funny story that goes with it. But
perfect.
Perfect. I was teaching Chuck and Howard on the Machado mat.
Yeah.
Because I'd often help them teach and stuff. And the door wasn't locked. I didn't lock the door. So I'm teaching them. These two little kids walk past. One's, 13 and 10. I don't know. Open the door, stick their heads in. Kid reels back in shock, points and says, "You're Chuck Norris," he proclaims.
Yeah.
What I would have done is I was going to say, "Look, sorry, guys, we're closed. This is a private thing." And Chuck says, "John, do you mind?" I go, "Of course not." He invites them in.
Yeah.
He brings them in onto the mat. He involves them in the lesson.
Awesome.
Now I'm teaching two kids, Howard Jackson and Chuck Norris. It's weird. And then he took his hat off and I think a T-shirt out of his bag, put a hat on one of them, a T-shirt on the other, and sent them on their way.
Wow, awesome.
I mean, right? How awesome.
Very
Those
cool.
kids would
and
be...
he was like at the height of his stardom.
Yes, of course. Everyone knew who he was. So that's the kind of guy he is.
Wow.
A kind of a person, right, that you're happy to spend time with. So he's a great guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very cool, and got into martial arts. Carlos Machado was his personal trainer in Texas for quite a while. Built him a studio. And Chuck Norris was responsible for the Machados coming out to America. He got their green cards and everything like that.
Wow. That's a pretty good sponsor to have to get you over, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, he's a cool guy. He's very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I just got told off by him one time. Oh my goodness, I've said it now.
Go on.
I'm sure he's okay with it. I got told off by Chuck Norris.
Look, if Chuck Norris hears this podcast, then
I'm dead.
then I'm pretty happy with that. I'll take that. I don't care if he's pissed with you.
If I'm a corpse in the gutter. Yeah.
I'm taking that as a W.
I went there. I was teaching, and I was talking about adrenal dump.
Yeah.
Fight and flight. And I was relating that to jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Right. And I was doing my little Jeff Thompson act, teaching all these guys. And I start talking about, we've evolved over hundreds of thousands of years and fight and flight. Afterwards, he says, John, you need to come up to my room. We have to have a chat. And I went up to his room, and then all the big wigs are there. And they said, John, seriously, you cannot talk about evolution. This is not real.
Oh, no.
The Earth is only 6,000 years old. And I think I said something like, bullshit, go on. I thought they were joking.
He's a hardcore Christian? Or?
Yeah. Well, he's Christian, yes, but I think so, I presume. But a lot of those guys were from Utah. A lot of them were Mormons. And you can't talk about evolution in that part of the world. And here I am going off, and they took that very seriously.
Really?
And I got told off.
That's very funny.
Yes, sir. It's funny.
So what? Next seminar is we've evolved over the last 6,000 years.
Yeah, the Earth is flat. My goodness. Yeah,
that's pretty funny.
There you go.
So let's go back anyway. So you kind of, as soon as you started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you had this first class with the Gracies, and then
yes,
and then with the Machados moving forward, were your instructors after that.
Yes.
And you spent a lot of time in Brazil.
No, not a lot.
Oh, not a lot.
Only a couple of times.
Okay.
And then it was only several years after I met them that then they moved to America. So then it was easier.
You
were
spending a lot of time in America.
Then I was going to America.
Sure,
yeah.
Yeah. And I guess you've been training for a long time. So sort of, if we go back to what we were talking about right at the beginning, which is that first UFC, what belt were you when that UFC came out?
Purple.
Okay, so you were
competent.
Yeah, like really, especially in that sort of time. That's like a pretty high level. When did you first hear that this thing was happening, where jiu-jitsu was going to be showcased to the world? Did you know about the UFC before the UFC actually aired? Or
yes, I did.
Yeah, because it's such an interesting thing, and I've spoken. I think the only other person that I spoke to who was training pre-UFC was Kurt Osiander, who I had on the podcast last year, and it's such an interesting thing because it really is like it's almost like it's like a huge point in martial art history and in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu history. And so many people found out about Jiu-Jitsu, found out about MMA from UFC 1. So the people that are there, it's almost like talking to people who were alive before Jesus was born. It's like that that massive point of time in martial arts history. So yeah, talk to me about that.
It was exciting times, right? Because it was like, nowadays it's so normal. We're all acclimatized to MMA and we fight 100%. And we go. But there was a time, believe it or not, but there was a time where that didn't happen. It was such a weird thing, right? People talked about challenge matches, but it was all like a bit of an urban mythy thing.
It was all underground. It was all closed doors, right?
And I think a lot of it was exaggerated. So I don't know. And it was so it was really interesting. In the first UFC, I remember there was a few guys. I was staying at a friend's apartment in Los Angeles, and we got a few martial artists around there. But they were, who they were Wing Chun guys, people who would say shit like, if I hit you like this, I'll burst your aorta. I go, fucking burst the aorta, mate. How often have you done that? Let's try. I was a bit like,
or like, you're gonna do that to someone's nose, and the nose will go into the brain. That's one of the best
kind of stuff. Yeah,
the nose would go into the brain.
No, that's right.
Imagine how many boxers would have died instantly if that was actually the case.
You make an excellent point. Make an excellent point.
Their nose just breaks.
So I had a few guys around, and I think I made like $100. Like I said, look, I don't know, I'm going to be radical. I think the skinny guy's going to win.
Oh, so okay, so you. This is almost training and knowing what jiu-jitsu was and the effect of this. Being a purple belt in jiu-jitsu before UFC 1 was almost like going back from the future to the past to bet on sporting events that had already happened.
Almost like
that.
Yeah, Marty McFly.
So did you know Hoist personally, or did you just know of him?
No. Oh, well, I'd met him.
Okay.
At the He wouldn't have known me.
Yeah.
But I met him at the Torrance Garage. He was a kid. You know,
Yeah.
He would have been 14, 15, I don't know, young.
Yeah.
But, so I knew him. No, that might... Yeah, well, maybe he was 17. I don't know. But yeah, I knew him. But also, I just knew jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And there's a guy in there with one boxing glove on. Like, why am I not going to bet money?
It really was. It was such an insane event. It really was such an insane event. Yeah, like that first when this guy comes out with one boxing glove, he's like, "I'm just going to knock him out with one hand. I don't want to break my hand in the process." And Hoist takes him down instantly, and the guy just taps from mount, like no submission. He just taps out because he's confused and panics and scared, and everyone's like, "What is this?" And of course, you're going. Hand it over and hand over the money.
Daniel, $100 was a lot of money for me at that point. I was broke, penniless, and my wife, we were like, I don't know, just eking a living. So it was very cool. We bought a shitload of all-you-can-eat buffet lunches. Couldn't wait for the next one. I think it worked for about 3 UFCs. Yeah. And then everyone go, hang on, what's going on here?
Yeah, there's a pattern here.
That was all out.
So sort of being someone who was already deeply inside the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world at that point, what was the repercussions within the martial arts community after the first 2 or 3 UFCs?
My recollection, it's a while ago, but
there was a lot of 25 years ago.
They weren't, it took quite a while. I think it took into this century, like after 2000, before things started to become, oh yeah, this is cool, we should do this. There was a lot of resistance to it. Yeah, there was. And I think the first, 3 or 4 years after the UFC, even then, I think it's only like people that were already martial artists doing it. That was the first wave, 4 or 5 years of everyone that trained was a martial artist, a karate guy, a sambo guy, whatever. They're not normal people. There was no people.
There were no
citizens.
Yeah, civilians. They call them. Yeah.
No.
Coming in off the street.
No, everyone had messed up ears, and we were doing, put DMSO on our skin to take bruising away. Sprinkling aspirin, pouring DMSO, which sucks it in and makes the bruise. Really? We were doing it was crazy times.
Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah.
No one got their ears drained at that point.
Badges of honor.
Oh, you're just an idiot for getting your head smashed like that. It was a sign you're an idiot. Keegan's ears are perfect.
Really?
Yeah.
That would be my excuse. My ears are perfect as well. So just say. It's just such a crazy time to think about. And then I guess the next thing is, we've spoken about the growth of jiu-jitsu through MMA in UFC 1 and onwards. But obviously you've been doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu for over 30 years. So have you seen sort of, with UFC 1 to 3 aside, have you seen sort of this exponential like ups and downs of the growth of Brazilian jiu-jitsu purely?
Don't see many downs. It's just been exponential growth. Yeah. And certainly I've been around long enough to compare it to some other fads. A fad like ninjutsu, I saw that fad. It came and then went. Yeah. Wing Chun was a fad after Jeet Kune Do in the mid. But Wing Chun lasted a bit longer, and I think I know why. I think it's because it was sufficiently complex to keep you coming back.
Sure.
But there's nothing more complex than Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Yeah. So there's enough complexity there to keep you interested for 40, 50 years. Yeah. And I think that's why Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is uniquely positioned as a martial art for exponential growth, much more than, say, karate or taekwondo and those kind of things, because it is infinitely complex. So you can never go, I've got it. In box, you can go, I got it, even though we know you haven't got it, but you can think, mistakenly believe you've got it. Yeah. But jiu-jitsu, every day you go, oh my goodness, what's this? Oh, my new sweep, oh, this and that. So it's the efficacy of it attracts people, but the complexity of it keeps you there for the rest of their life. Sure. And that's an unusual mix, both efficacy, it works in real fights, and complexity. Yeah. So I think that's what's given that, combined with the emergence of the internet. Yeah. It was good timing.
Yeah. So it is a kind of weird thing where, this is a sport that essentially is, 50 years old, absolute max, realistically, 30 years old outside of Brazil. So much of the entire lifespan of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as a sport has existed within the internet. So it kind of, especially at the explosion in the early 2000s when, you know, Jiu-Jitsu started to get really big, and even now it's still kind of on this really steep upward curve. It's sort of, it bonded with the internet so much, you know, instructional videos and YouTube and you know, all of these things, Instagram and Facebook, where if you see other sports that have a much longer history, you have people within the sport that don't have that sort of connection to the internet. You see judo guys, they're a little bit left behind. You know, there are young guys in judo who are taking advantage, but because jiu-jitsu is such a new sport, it seems to have you know, sort of a connection with the internet that a lot of sports don't have.
Yeah, I think that's true. Yeah. A lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah, and you know, even yourself, you know, I know that you put a lot of content out. You've got your blog. I was reading. You put stuff on the. What is the blog quickly? Since we're talking about it, like,
what's no idea.
The website. Just search
Don Will's blog, please.
I think. Do you post them anywhere else apart from the blog?
Well, I just post on my Facebook page.
Yeah. Do you post the blog, because they're only short? You write them almost every day, don't you?
Yeah, most days I put something there.
They're only short. Do you put them on Facebook as well?
Quite often I do.
You should do.
If I think, I mostly do.
Yeah.
If I think it's too personal, like,
sure.
Like, you know, like, here's my wife, we're in Venice. I'm not putting that on my blog.
Okay, yeah, of course.
Personal meaning, no one's going to be interested.
Yeah.
Right. But if I think and mostly 95% of what I write, I'm doing it only because I think this is going to be of value to someone.
Sure.
I'm not trying to sell anything. I don't need money anymore.
Yeah.
I'm retired. You know, so I'm just putting stuff out there.
Yeah.
Trying to maybe it'll help someone, inspire someone, maybe get someone thinking a little bit differently.
Yeah.
So that's my main motivation. And also, you know what it's like when you do podcasts or when you write or something.
Yep.
It's a method by which you can crystallize your own thinking.
Sure.
You know, you get your own thinking sorted by doing it.
Yeah.
And it's almost like selfish reason.
It's a process, yeah.
Yeah. So you process that, you're doing it. And if other people can get benefit from you doing,
everyone wins.
Everyone wins.
Absolutely, yeah. So do you kind of just go about your day as usual and you have an idea and then you allow that to manifest itself into a full post on your blog?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. I advise people to go and check it out, but you should definitely like the you know, like you said with the internet, like Facebook, it's such a viral, like the whole point of Facebook is that it goes viral, you know, that's what it's meant to do more than any other website as well. It's kind of part of the problem of it, which is you're always trying to get, you know, Facebook is always trying to notify you and spread stuff and it's like a virus, you know, it really is like social media is like a virus. But I think if you can infect people, you might as well do it with positive stuff. Yeah,
I've never been trying to do it. Like, you know, I've never said I want to get followers or people. I've never done that. Yeah. Even with my school and academy or seminars or anything, I've never done it. I've just done what I wanted to do, but it happens.
Yeah. So you're talking about your academy and stuff like that. When did you open up your, you know, we're still in the timeline of the story that we're talking about of your of your martial arts career. You're kind of you're getting $100 in it in all the buffets after UFC 1. So let's fast forward a little bit to you actually opening. And let me just first ask, when you obviously you've done a lot of martial arts in the past. When you started jiu-jitsu, was that the end of all the other martial arts for you?
There was a time like electric cars. You know, there's a time where you're doing both. You know, obviously, right? There's a crossover, and it just kind of it continued for quite a while. Okay. You know, I was doing some stand-up stuff, but then I was fascinated with jiu-jitsu. I got Henzo out to Australia way when he was way before he was a black belt.
Wow,
he was a brown belt when he came out and stayed at my house. Way out. Wow. So I was trying to do both, but then I fell in love with jiu-jitsu, so I just started doing more of that. But I couldn't open an academy because I wasn't, you know, I was just a purple belt at that.
Sure.
And then,
but even as a purple belt, you must have been the highest grade in Australia. By far.
Yeah. So I was teaching jiu-jitsu, but just, you know, on the side.
Sure.
I wasn't
full time.
Yeah. So I was just doing some jiu-jitsu classes after the other classes, stuff like that. And then I got my black belt in 1997. And then since then, I've been kind of teaching jiu-jitsu.
So, 97, that is crazy. Were you one of the first? I know that you're part of the Dirty Dozen, which I coined that phrase. I believe, I was about to say, you coined that phrase.
I did, yeah.
Did you, firstly, when did you coin it? Was it after the, like, literally after the 12th person, you were like, cool, they're the Dirty Dozen?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And I was one of them.
Yeah.
But I was just saying things, Daniel. I wasn't, it wasn't like well thought out.
It's a really like
it's a
well-regarded term now.
It's now weirdly a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, so we got to be careful what we say.
Do you know who they are? All of them?
No. Okay. But I know my friends, Chris Howder, David Meyer, Bob Bass. We all train, so we're a bunch of them. But then there's other ones. There's some ones. Craig Cook was one of them, and some funny ones.
Do you know where you rank, like, in terms of how early you got your...
I'm about 11 or 12.
Okay,
there's a lot of debate.
You snuck right in there.
Yeah, I did snuck right in there. I think I've been kicked out once and then dragged back in.
You got kicked out of your own club?
Yeah. As they should kick me out.
Usurped.
Yeah, I was, because someone said, no, someone else got it, some guy, but, then it turned out to be an honorary thing.
Okay.
There's a few of those going around.
Sure.
We'll just give you a black belt because you're 90 and you're going to die in a minute.
Sure.
And they go, that doesn't count, and stuff like that.
Okay, fair enough. So you and just quickly, because I'm quite interested, because you just mentioned that you had this crossover period where you were doing some stand up still whilst you were training Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. You've done so many, and I know that we've only spoken about a few, but you really have done a lot of martial arts. Yeah. I'm not even going to try and get you the list of them all, because there really is that many. When you were doing stand-up, what were you practicing? Because, it's so interesting when it comes to grappling, you could do judo, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, or wrestling, realistically, to be effective. There'll be people out there, you could do catch wrestling and you could do blah, 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 whatever. Like, there are very few things to choose from, and most grappling arts are a combination of all of them. But with the striking arts, there are such a huge number of different and huge variations amongst all of the striking arts. So as someone who's done so many, I'm really interested to see what you landed on just before you gave up the striking arts. Like, was it a combination of X and Y and a little bit of this?
It was. I was trying to do as many different things as I can. I did a bit of Muay Thai in Thailand, karate in Japan. I did Goju-Kai karate in Australia. I did Taekwondo to a black belt. I did a lot of Silat in Indonesia. Yeah. I was there for about 8 years. Fought in the World Championship in 1982.
You lived in Indonesia for 8 years?
On and off, yeah.
Wow.
I speak Indonesian. I went there. I got a black belt in several Indonesian styles. And then when I won the world title in 1982 in Jakarta.
Wow.
It was 14 countries, I think. Only 14 countries. Now it's much bigger, but that was kind of cool. And then at that point, I kind of just said, I want to do something different. I want to do more grappling. And
sure.
So I started to do BJJ.
There is some grappling in Silat.
Well, there's a lot of different... when people say Silat, that's a very broad term.
Yeah, sure.
Some of them are just weaponry arts. Yeah. Other styles are just pure grappling. There are Silat styles that are purely grappling, gulat. And then there's kicking styles. So it's a vast thing. So that's what was interesting about Silat to me. You could travel through the length and breadth of Indonesia and expose yourself to 100 different styles, and
almost like languages and dialects and stuff. Right, so varied.
So it was quite, it was an adventure, right?
Sure.
I wouldn't say a lot of it was very effective. I don't think that, but it was interesting, and it was like eye opening. And I was young, I was doing that when I was 18. Wow. So I was living in slums in Java and.
What an authentic way, and it's so interesting because you've been on an incredible not jiu-jitsu but an incredible martial arts journey, but not just that you've trained a lot of martial arts, but you've trained them in their sort of country of origin. Like, it really immersed yourself in the culture, and it reminds me of something I read a few days ago about Anthony Bourdain. He was saying, when you go to somewhere, when you travel, don't go to the hotels and eat there, or don't go to the nice restaurants. Like, go to the slums and like go and eat with the people, and go and actually really immerse yourself in the culture, because you can learn so much about the culture from the way that people cook. And I imagine it's the same with martial arts, that you can learn a lot from the culture by the way that people fight. Yeah. So it's a really interesting thing that, like you said, you train karate in Japan, you train the Filipino martial arts in Indonesia and in the Philippines and stuff like that.
There's some interesting things. One you might like to know a bit more about was called Vajra Mushti. Yeah. Have you ever heard of that?
Never heard of it.
It's very interesting. Check it out, Vajra Mushti. I've written about it. I wrote about one article about it. I have got hundreds of emails about that article. Yeah.
Go on.
It's in southern India. It's a wrestling system called Vajra Mushti.
Okay.
And you wear a knuckle duster on your right hand.
This is UFC 1 again.
Yep. And it's no rules.
Wow.
So it's kicking, punching.
That's not a wrestling system.
Grappling.
That's a fight. That's just a pure.
Yeah, and
that's
with
MMA,
a knuckle
right?
duster. So I've got a
No
photo
way.
of a guy about 70 years ago doing an omoplata. So imagine this, omoplata. The guy's fully prone, getting omoplated, getting punched in the back of the head with a knuckle duster at the same time.
Wow.
They had omoplata. So they were grappling. That family is called the Jesse Mullahs. And the Jesse Mullah, literally in India, means the wrestler who cannot be beaten.
Wow.
That's the family name. So welcome. And they have done that for over 1,000 years.
No way.
The males were all doing that. The women were bone setters and healers.
Wow.
And it lasted 1,000 years. And they were traditionally used all throughout India as bodyguards for the princes. So do you want to hear the story?
Yeah,
Really quickly.
Absolutely. Take as much time as you want.
This is going to make me look bad, and I may be thrown in jail, but here it is. I risk everything for Daniel's interview.
It's very much appreciated.
Okay, so I was in India. I heard about this art. I went to the State Reference Library, and there's a book there, a very old book, a very hard-to-get book, which now resides in my library. That's all I'll say. I appreciate these things. What do they care?
Sure.
They're into commerce, and
It would have got lost or sold, or you're doing them a favor.
It's a piece of shit. So this book is called the Mala Purana, which means the ancient grappling, and it's about that family.
Wow.
So in that time that book was published, England owned, colonized
Sure.
India. So there was some rules, there was some law for a little bit of time where if they published a book, they had to do an English preface. So this fell under that time or whatever. So I've got this book, and it's got the first 20 or 30 pages are in English.
Wow.
So it was so cool. So I got this book, and I've gone, this book was written in the 50s or something, or right? And I saw that was down in Baroda, which is a state down in Gujarat, in the desert in Gujarat. So I rocked up to Baroda. There's 5 million people there, and I've just got this book in my hand. I'm going to try and find out, are these people still alive? Like, what the hell? So I figured they're Vaishnavas, like Krishna worshippers, because they've got a little bald head ponytail, right?
Sure.
So I just asked the guy, where's the biggest Krishna temple, oldest one in the city? I give the guy $20. He's guiding me for the day. He takes me there. I asked this old priest, old guy in there, old monk, I said, you ever heard of these guys? Vajra Mushti? He didn't look very happy or interested. He just waved his hand and pointed across the road to another house. Go and ask over there or something. He said something like that.
Yeah.
My translator told me. I walk across. I knock on the door. Who opens it up? The guy in the photo.
No.
In the book. Yeah. The guy, one of the
Doing
two
the
brothers.
reply.
There's only about 5-6 photos in that book.
Yeah.
And they're two brothers doing it, beating the shit out of each other, scarred up, all scars and all that hardcore. And he opens the door. He must have been probably 70 years old.
Wow.
Big man, nothing but scar tissue.
Yeah.
And, I stayed with him for probably about 10 days. Took me around to their old training pit, big old key, opened up this ancient padlocks, like something out of Indiana Jones,
No
opened up
way.
and went in there, and all these Vajra Mushtis, these weapons called these knuckle dusters, are in special little things around the wall. Going back, they go, that's 600 years old. That's this famous guy.
Wow.
Got in the pit with him, and they taught me some stuff.
Wow.
Like insanely
so cool.
awesome. It's all over now. They're finished. Those men are dead, and no one in India's doing that.
No way. Wow, that is insane.
So you get to see these. So there's been some stuff.
It makes you wonder, like, obviously it's such a shame, like a dynasty of warriors
Right.
and martial artists that have now no more, and how many of these small kind of traditional, local, legendary in their little community martial arts exists that we don't know about and that are going extinct like this.
Because, Daniel, it only takes one generation to not want to do it.
Yeah.
And it's all over. Then you've got to reinvent it again. So imagine trying to reinvent from scratch Greco-Roman.
Yeah.
I mean, a simple thing like I pick Greco-Roman because it's relatively simple compared to freestyle, compared to BJJ.
Yeah.
So even just it would take a long time. So yeah, things have died out, which is really how many times have been? And these guys had omoplata.
Wow.
Omoplata. You don't do omoplata accidentally.
No.
That's a.
This is what I try to explain to people is like, no one's invented anything. Like it all exists already.
Yeah.
If I come up with a technique, I say I came up with it. I don't say I invented it.
Yeah.
Let's say some 14-year-old in Brazil did it by accident 30 years ago.
I invented toast and the question mark.
Yeah, exactly. It's just impossible. But the fact that something that is so kind of really like a fundamental jiu-jitsu technique. There are a lot of techniques in jiu-jitsu, like arm bars, like a lot of chokes and stuff like that you can trace back to a lot of the judo stuff. Obviously, that's where most of Brazilian jiu-jitsu comes from, judo, and then Newaza in judo. But there are some techniques that seem very authentically jiu-jitsu, stuff like the triangle, where you're not really, even though there are some examples of people doing triangle stuff in judo, it really is viewed as a kind of almost pure jiu-jitsu technique, like the omoplata as well. I know that, again, there's a little bit of it in judo. You can find some old texts with that sort of stuff in, but the fact that some small fighting community family in India are doing this that long ago is crazy.
Bizarre.
Yeah.
I mean, I was in Greece last year, and the museum in Athens is really worth visiting. It's world class, one of the best museums in the world. And in there, I sat down and went, "Oh my God, there's a centaur
doing a heel hook."
Doing the heel hook.
Yep.
And I just sat there with my wife. We both sat there and stared at it for an hour. It was like fantastic. And it was inside Ashigarami. He had his feet on the had his little hoof on the inside. It was like awesome.
It is incredible. But then at the same time, if you actually think about it, it's not surprising because there are only so many ways that the human body can be manipulated. There's only so many ways the human body can move. And with enough people, I genuinely believe that if you erase the knowledge of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu from the entire world in another 1,000 or 100 or however long after that, it would be
with the internet.
It would be even without the internet. I think that just because people start grappling and eventually they're rolling around on the floor doing arm bars, chokes, and leg locks, just like they were in ancient Greece and just like they're doing today.
Well, you can see it. I mean, for me, I look at it. I see, you see something like a sotogari. Right, you see a sotogari, you do it a sotogari. Now the guy's laying in front of you with your knee on your stomach. That's how armbar, for sure, was invented. A sotogari led to, what if I step over the head and sit backwards? Armbar, and then, so you start with the simplicity. What's something more current? Ashigarami. So you see someone did a scissor takedown. You do a scissor takedown, which is not a crazily difficult thing to come up with.
Yeah.
And if you do a scissor takedown, you're going to end up with the inside heel hook position. So if you just look carefully, you can kind of see, I think you can make a fairly educated guess about how most things have evolved. What was the first seed idea and how it became complex, and then what would you have done to stop that, and then what did I have to do to get around that? And you can kind of, I think I can map out almost every technique. Yeah. It's a guess, but it's an educated guess.
And then the question always is, were these things created at some point organically out of just the fact that this is the way that the human body moves, and then that was kind of taken and spread, or did these things come together convergently? Was someone doing an armbar for some other reason over here? Someone was doing an armbar. Was there guys in India doing armbars wrestling, and then there's guys in Japan judo doing armbars and wrestling, and then the ancient Greeks doing armbars and wrestling, and then they didn't even have to see each other, and they just all came together, and we end up with armbars.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah,
people like we no one invented cooking.
Yeah.
Like we all had to.
Yeah.
No one invented making fire and then it spread. I mean, it happened all over the place. Yeah. So I think it's us. It's just emergent.
Yeah, no, it's so fascinating. But I feel jealous that you've kind of gone and seen these incredible. And like, I'd love to do that. Like, go out to some of these places in places where you would never think that there are martial arts, and find the martial arts there. Like even in the UK,
Lancashire, Cumberland, Westmoreland wrestling.
We have
all these things. And
a lot of them. Second, almost. Oh, it's the worst. No, I didn't come. I was about to sneeze. We'll come in a bit.
Don't die. Don't die.
But the UK has such an incredible history in wrestling, and it's kind of died out. We really don't, even like Scottish back wrestling, or they do ones where they basically just grab onto each other's shoulders. They stuff hay into their socks and just kick the shit out of each other's shins. Have you ever seen that?
Yep.
It's crazy, but backhold wrestling and all of sort of these catch-as-catch-can wrestlings, Lancashire wrestling, all of this stuff. Just like I was saying, just like dialect, just like accents, every region kind of took their own thing and ran with it. But then they're all dying out. And they're probably all dying out in favor of stuff like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, to be honest.
Probably, yeah.
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is sort of the equivalent of the humans taking over the world and killing everything else. We're part of the problem.
Yeah, we are.
But that's because it works, right? Yeah. It works better than the rest of the stuff. But, going back to that, obviously you have the differences in all of the martial arts, but you strike me as someone, because you embrace yourself in the culture of all of the places that you're training, that you're also going to kind of get a good understanding and respect to the philosophy behind the martial art. And I think that's something that, again, with modern times, philosophy is something that's a lot less looked at. With the internet and with just the like you said, the efficacy of jiu-jitsu, people don't really care about the history or the philosophy or the origins. They care more about the results. It's like they want it now. They don't care about the philosophy. They just want to go and choke someone out. Is the philosophy in, not just in jiu-jitsu, but in all of these other smaller martial arts, from regional martial arts, traditional martial arts elsewhere that you've done, is the philosophy behind that something that you've taken on board, and is that something that's affected you with what you're doing now with jiu-jitsu?
No, I don't believe. Look, my own experience is that a lot of these people that are ranting about their philosophies that drive their lives coming out of their martial arts, I think a lot of it's just total smoke and mirrors.
Fair enough.
I think their pamphlet says one thing and they're living another way.
Sure.
They can say honour, respect and loyalty on their pamphlet, but I don't see that that's what they're doing. So
yeah.
I believe that as individuals, I just happen to be someone. It's very important to me. I won't even use the word philosophy, but I've got very strong thoughts and opinions on lots of things, how to live and
code.
Yes, yeah. But I would say that's an individual. That's a personal thing. Each person's capable of doing that or not doing that. I actually see quite a lot of. Mostly, I see a very inconsistency in the martial arts landscape. People talk about leverage and understanding leverage, but I don't see that that's playing out in their life away from the mat.
Sure.
So I question, how deep is your understanding of leverage?
Yeah.
You're talking about it on the mat, but you're not doing it in your relationships. You're not doing it in your finances. Do you really get it?
Yeah.
I like to be congruent. If I can, come across a way of thinking about something on the mat, one of the ways I think that it's good and real and valid is it immediately can work away from the mat in other areas of your life. And I don't think it takes a martial art any more than it takes a religion to make a good person.
Yeah.
You don't need religion to be a good person. There's plenty of good people that are out there that are not religious.
And plenty of bad people
that
that
are just murdering. So I think it's... People, they say stuff like that because it's easy. You'd be more moral. Really? That's not what I see. I'm looking out in the world. Look, ask Christopher Hitchens. Ask your own guy, Richard Dawkins, they'll tell you, no, that's not what I'm seeing. You can say that. If it blows your skirt up, if that's what you need to be a moral person, feel free.
Yeah.
I just don't. And I think it's exactly the same with martial arts. People say these things, but if I look around and going, I'm not seeing moral behaviour. I'm not seeing deep thinking. I'm not seeing reasoned thinking.
Yeah.
So that's weird that you say those things, but I'm not seeing it. So I think it comes down to
the individuals.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So, just to expand on something, because that is really interesting. I think, people talk about a lot of abstract concepts inside of and its application to the physicality in jiu-jitsu and in martial arts, but they don't apply that to the life outside. So if you can give an example, you use the example of talking about leverage in jiu-jitsu, but not applying it to their relationships or finances. Can you expand on that and what that means to you outside of the mat?
Oh, I've got 100 examples. So process. So you want to learn a crucifix, and we've got to learn that we first of all need to orchestrate it so that our opponent's hands between our legs.
Yeah.
Right. And then we find different ways to turn him over, and then we find different finishes. So we realize that it's a process. It's a process.
Yeah.
Just like escaping good side control. You're not going to pop out. It's not like you pop out. It's a process. 5% improvement, 5% improvement, 5% improvement in your position. Yeah. Get out. So it's the same thing in life, right? So if I've got a debt, of $100,000 of bad debt, right? You're not gonna overcome the problem. If you're 20 kilos overweight, you're not going to overcome the problem like that. Bang.
Yeah.
How did you get 20 kilos overweight? The same way you got in bad position in side control. You made 10 little mistakes and didn't see them and end up in this worst case scenario.
Yeah.
So how do you get out of that? You reverse that. You don't escape. You improve your situation by 5%. Repeat,
Sure.
repeat until you're out. Same thing with your $100,000 debt, or with your 20 kilos of overweight. You just lose half a kilo. Go keto for 1 week. Eat clean for a week. You've lost a kilo. Repeat 20 times.
Yeah.
Well, that's just one simple example, but yeah, so there's so many things we learn on the mat about ourselves and about process and about learning, about viewing things, about making distinctions between things that look similar but are very, very different.
Yeah.
And finding similarities between things that look different but are actually very similar.
Yeah.
Das, anaconda, katagatami, all identical. So then we take that in life. You look at these two things and they look different, but you go, hang on, let me see the similarities in there.
Yeah.
Oh, I can do something with that. Or vice versa. And there's just an infinite number of ways.
Yeah.
I don't understand why people all just don't.
Well, it is a good question. I do agree with you. I think there's a lot of lessons. The whole point of a concept is you have an idea that is applicable to something outside of the specific situation that you're looking at. Now, when you say you don't understand why people don't do that, it kind of goes to as instructors, we're teaching people the physical aspect of jiu-jitsu. Is it a responsibility, or do you feel as an instructor it's a responsibility of yours to actually teach people the application of concepts in martial arts that apply outside of martial arts?
Oh, 100%. That's what I'm about. Now, I'm not going to put that on anyone else. We're all right. We're all individuals, and I'm not as judgy as I used to be.
Sure.
So I think that's 100% whatever you want to do. So people who want to just teach berimbolo and just the sporting aspect of jiu-jitsu, hey, fine.
Sure.
If it keeps you coming back to the mat, 100% I'm on board.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to just work in a fight. Forget about that. It's too narrow. It's got to be fun. If it's fun, keeps you coming back, I'm on board. These old school guys, it doesn't work in a real fight. Really? How many fights are you getting into? Does it have to?
Yeah.
What keeps you coming back to the mat is, if you're just going to go, does it work in a fight? That won't keep you coming back to the mat. That's stupid. So I think that people can teach sport. They can teach self-defense jiu-jitsu for self-defense. They can teach jiu-jitsu just for fun and the pure pleasure of, rolling around like a kid on the floor.
Yeah.
I personally choose to try to... I'm trying to get people to think. I'm trying, because if I can get them to just view things a little bit differently, to change the way their mind works, and think about things, then I think I'm doing something worthwhile in the world. Because there's enough people out there, and I can do it. I can teach people to do well in the sport aspect of jiu-jitsu. I've got some guys who've gone in and become world champions and stuff like that. But there's so many people doing that. Am I really going to make a difference doing more of that? I think I can make a difference. I have made a difference with a lot of people, getting them to change the way they think. That's something that's my niche.
Sure.
Right. And I think you've got to find your niche. I think you've got to find, the way because people come to the mat for a reason they think a reason that they think they're on board with, but that's not usually the real reason. And
is that down to you then to find out what the real reason that someone comes to the mat?
Well, yeah. I mean, Buckminster Fuller put it really well. You know, ever heard of him?
No.
Bucky, genius from last century, wrote a book called The Critical Path, really interesting. An analogy to borrow from him was a bee collecting pollen, flower to flower. A bee thinks it's collecting pollen. And you can't argue that it's not collecting pollen, but something way bigger is happening.
Yeah.
Cross-pollination of flowers. And that's why we got this thing when we look outside the window, all these plants. So something far greater is happening than from the bee's little narrow perspective.
Yeah.
And I think that's the same thing with, potentially, same thing with jiu-jitsu.
Sure.
We can come on the mat, roll around and do kimuras and omoplatas and stuff like that, but other things are happening. And those things are of interest to me.
Sure.
The cross-pollination is of more interest to me than collecting the pollen.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I like that. You know, so let's go back, like we were saying. At what point did you open up your academy in Australia?
Well, I always kind of had a school from about 1982 onwards.
Wow. When did it? So is your school now full Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
We do 2 stand-up classes a week.
Okay.
Where we, so we just that way it keeps it a little bit real for people who do come. See, people come to my school. When they come to my school, they're not coming because they know who I am.
Sure.
They're not coming because they know BJJ. Probably 80% of the people that come to the school are just saying, "Oh, I want to take up martial arts."
Yeah.
So, part of that is because they think, perhaps mistakenly, but they think that they need to defend themselves.
Yeah.
That even if that's just a part of what they do, then I feel I have some obligation to make sure that they can cover up, shell up, change levels, move in, clinch the guy, to do jiu-jitsu, or bang some pads, and move around and work some angles and do some thigh kicks and stuff like that. So I'm kind of fulfilling my obligation by doing the stand-up classes,
Okay.
If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm doing. But the class, the majority of the students in my school gravitate toward, well, in every school, they gravitate toward whatever the instructor happens to love.
Sure,
to.
yeah.
So if you start doing origami,
Everyone's going to do origami.
Yeah. So naturally, it's very heavy toward the BJJ, and most of the classes are BJJ. But we do a few stand-up classes.
And did you have your academy? Was that when you got your black belt that you really went into the?
No, I had my academy. Well, it wasn't called academy. It was just a school before then. But yeah, when I got my black belt, that's when I started.
Then you could really go full force with it.
Yeah, and I was the only black belt.
Because this is the thing. You were the only black belt in Australia, so. Firstly, just out of interest, how long was it before the second person in Australia got a black belt?
Well, they got it from me.
Really?
Hang on. That might not be true. I'm not sure about that, actually, Daniel.
Yeah.
Sorry. But yeah, I don't know. It took me it took me about 12 years to make a black belt. In those days.
That's about right, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now there's 200 of them or something. So.
In Australia?
Mine, black belts, yeah.
Wow. Just yours? Wow. Because, you really would be, being the first black belt, and it's kind of not, it's not like that in the UK, In the UK, we kind of had, because did you have a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt from Brazil come over to Australia and live there and teach there at all?
Oh, yeah, that's happened.
But before you were there? Before you were a black belt, sorry.
No.
Okay, so you were the first black belt, not just the first Australian black belt, but you were the first black belt who was teaching consistently.
I was
in
the
Australia.
only guy selling raspberries in an apple market.
There you go. And it's just not like that in the UK. In the UK, it's very different. Obviously, it's a much smaller country. We had black belts come over here and live over here, and guys like Mauricio came over, and guys beforehand, Alan Sakara and Chimoraish and guys like that came over, and they were really the a lot of people consider Mauricio Gomez the grandfather of UK Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and he gave out 3 black belts, the first 3 British black belts. Like, there was 3 of them. It wasn't like that with you. Like, you were the only person. You really were. Yeah. You are the grandfather of Australian Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Yeah,
that's true.
And how, did you feel at that point a responsibility to spread Jiu-Jitsu in Australia?
No.
Really?
I didn't. Some people credit me with those kind of things, but no, I was just a guy like you, passionate about what he does.
Yeah.
And I looked around one day and I went, oh my goodness, there's a couple of thousand people following me. Where'd they come from?
Yeah.
Like, I had no vision. I had no vision.
Yeah.
I had none of that. I was just interested in doing it. And I still don't. I've never been interested in business, right? But it comes as a consequence of
Sure.
doing
something you love and
and doing it well and doing it the right way
Yeah.
and treating people the right way and being a man, and like, don't mistreat people.
Yeah.
And then if you do it, then you get good outcomes.
Yeah.
But
so and you were teaching, like pre-UFC in Australia. Mm-hmm. So what was? Let's just talk about Australia, because the only person I've spoken to from Australia so far on the podcast is Lachlan.
He's a black belt. I gave Lachlan.
Oh, really? So you're even before that. Kind of. I want to get into. I want to learn a little bit about the history of Australian Jiu-Jitsu, basically, and who better to tell me about it than the person who's kind of planted the seed for it all. So,
well, I was, as a martial artist, I still had to make enough money to pay the rent.
Yeah.
So I started doing the odd seminar. Like people said, "Oh, could you come up karate schools and stuff?"
Yeah.
Like that. Can you come and do some stuff? So I started to do the odd seminar, and then every time I do a seminar, there'd be a bunch of other instructors there. So they go, "Oh, next time you come up, can you come to my school as well?" And then suddenly I'm doing 120 seminars a year.
that many?
Oh yes, and I've been doing that
Wow.
for 20 years.
120 a year?
I've done I've done over 2,000 seminars.
Holy shit! I thought I did
27,000 classes this year. I've kept a track, notes.
27,000 classes this year.
This is in this year.
Oh,
it will arrive.
Okay,
not
okay.
not.
I was going to say
no.
that math doesn't add up. You've been very busy.
No.
Okay, wow, 27,000.
This year it will be 27,000.
You counted every class that you taught? Really? Wow.
Take notes.
Is that just something like a personality trait of yours? Do you take a lot of notes?
Yeah.
Do you document a lot?
I document everything.
Really? When you say everything, do you mean to what level of, to what scale do you document?
So I'll do notes. I taught a class last night, so I planned the class. I planned it all out. I know the structure. I taught it. I take a note of that particular school, how they responded to that. When I said it, or I might say, I taught it this way this time instead of that other way, or the other 20 ways you could teach that. I took a different approach, and I give myself a rating. That worked better than the last one.
So you did this literally for the...
I do it every time, every class.
Really?
Yeah. I always debrief myself after every class.
And do you ever go back over your notes? I don't take notes for anything. It's awful.
Yeah. No, I didn't used to, but now that I've got technology like an iPad...
Is that where you write them?
I can show you in a minute.
Yeah.
I'll show you, a typical thing if you like.
Yeah, absolutely.
And take a photo of it. And then I'll do it for every subject. So I'll try to say, whatever subject that you want to pick, ashigarami, or it doesn't matter what it is, I will write up 100 things on the wall on a big whiteboard, everything I know about ashigarami, and then I'll ask a simple question. I'll say, well, if I'm going to work with Daniel, and I like Daniel, and I was only allowed to teach him ashigarami for 5 minutes, out of all this stuff that I know, what would it be, and what would be my rationale? And what if I had 10 minutes? Then what would I add on? And what would be the rationale?
Yeah.
And so then I end up having this plan, in a box with a bow on it, ashigarami, not just random things. And then then when I deliver that at some point, I will then critique it and say, and keep trying to tweak it, keep trying to make the delivery better and change some things out. Last night we were doing, snap downs to front headlock on all fours. So snap downs. Clinching, how to clinch without him getting collar tie, and then snap downs, and then then you drag him down to, now you're on headlock control, and then from there katakatami, das, anaconda.
Yeah.
Right? And how they all connect up. How they're similar and how they're different. But then at that point, at the end of it, when you've got the front headlock on all fours, the person can tripod up. The front headlock, if it's done well with a good chin strap, can stop him going forward, left, right, or back. Doesn't stop him putting his butt up in the air to a tripod. So when I saw one person do that, I said, okay, just so you understand, when someone does that, that leads to cradle. Now you take the guy down with a cradle, and that leads to a whole lot of ashigaramis and back takes and things. So I just made a note on my note. should add in cradle at least for 10 minutes of that front headlock position.
Yeah.
Because I saw some people standing up like that, trying to get relief on their neck.
Yeah.
So, just constantly tweaking like that, constantly doing it. That's the fun, right? It's the fun for me anyway.
So when you do seminars, do you said that you had everything planned that you were going to do.
Yes.
Do you have sort of like one seminar like at a time that you're doing?
No,
So
I don't do that.
Okay. So do you how do you decide what you're going to teach at a seminar?
So I'll teach 15 different seminars in the last 10 days, for example, let's say.
So, but what makes you decide what you're going to do?
Sometimes if it's a black belt school owner, like, they're black belts.
You ask them?
Yeah. What is the subjects that you're interested in? Then I'll deliver that subject. If, of course, there are some schools I've been to 20 times or 30 times, or I think there's some schools I've been to 40, 50 times. So I've kept notes. I've got so on my iPad. The cool thing is I've got their little book.
Yeah,
I've got a book with all their seminars. So and you can see all the pages. So I can, at a glance, see what their last 20 seminars have been. So I can say, well, given that we've done that, this is the best thing they should do next because it ties in with something we've done before. So yeah, mostly I plan it. But I'm also not the kind of person that could teach, the 2019 seminar because
that's why I do. Yeah,
because I couldn't do it. I'd be too bored. Like I want to continually stimulate myself, so I need to.
Yeah, I've taught the same seminar like 60 times in a row now. I'm not even joking. Over the last year and a bit, and I've still got a lot more to go. But yeah, that's what I did the last. I've done basically a seminar tour every year, and I just do one subject, and I make the product, and then I just teach the product.
Oh, nice.
It can get a little bit monotonous, but I don't mind it. I really enjoy checking people, so it's fine.
Well, you were drilling down into it again and again and again, and every time you do it, clearly you're a different person than the last time you did it.
Yeah.
So it should be different.
Yeah.
And you should see it differently.
Yeah, I just get better. I remember whenever I do like 50. Last year I did 50 seminars all on the guillotine, and by the end of it, I'm like, my guillotine's better than ever now.
Oh, yeah, I'd love to do it. I'd love to be in your class.
Oh, absolutely, man. We'll try and sort it out sometime. I'm hoping to come to Australia next year anyway, so hopefully maybe I can come and visit your gym and kind of see everything that you're talking about in reality. Talking about seminars, because I've spoken to a few people that have been to your seminars, and you do have a unique method or philosophy or structure to how you teach them. I'll let you explain what you do specifically. Do you know what I'm talking about? And then kind of give an idea as to why you do those things.
Well, as I said, each seminar that I teach is usually, it's unique. But I will pick it generally. I mean, I've got a lot of different ways I can structure things, but the most common way, if I just to pick a way, would be that I choose a topic. And then I will drill down, let's say crucifix. So I might say, let's do crucifix, we want to do crucifix. So then I have, I'll always have what I call a fortune cookie way of looking at it. So I want to get everyone on board with the thinking in a 10-minute warm-up. So I'll say something like, crucifix is back control done sideways. So if you do back control sideways, that gives you an advantage because you can kill one arm with the legs. Then we're winning the arm deficit. We've got two arms against his one. Do you get it? Everyone goes, oh, you're right. I get that. So you got to quickly get people to. So
you have one of those
for every
for every position.
Of course, yes.
Oh man, give me a few.
Well, Das, Anaconda, Katagatami are all triangle. There's a head and an arm stuck in there.
Yeah.
But just depending on which angle, whether I'm lying next to you, whether I'm lying 90 degrees to you, we call it by a different name.
Yeah.
But we've got to realize it's the same thing.
Sure.
So you do this. So I start with that. I get everyone on the same page because there might be a black belts, there might be white belts. So I need to begin with a very simple idea of the concept.
Yeah.
Where someone could grasp it in a sentence. Oh, yeah, crucifix, back control done sideways.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
A white belt can get that.
Yeah.
So because you need to get everyone on the same page, whether it's a really world-class black belt or whether it's a guy who's just joined 3 months because they're on the seminar, right? So You have to do that, and then you start building it. Okay, let's build it. Now let's get 4 or 5 entries into crucifix from different positions. One from knee ride, one from turtle, one as I'm passing the guard, one as he's passing my guard, arm drag his leg between your legs and then go to your knees, or one from So you give people a bunch of different entries, because that way again, no matter who's on the mat, everyone will be able to relate to one of the entries.
Yeah.
So now you've got them understanding what it is. You've got a bunch of entries to get to crucifix, and now we can talk about crucifix.
Yeah.
Meaning, here's some finishes. And you might give 4 or 5 or 8 finishes from crucifix. But it's no good doing a whole bunch of crucifix finishes with only one way to get there, because there's a lot of people on the mat that won't get there one way. You have to give them more ways to get there. You're better off to go 8 ways to get there, 1 finish. Rather than 1 way to get there, 8 finishes.
Sure.
Because if you can't get there, you're doing none of it.
Yeah.
So more ways to get there, several finishes, and then a few transitions if you're losing it. Where are you going to if you're losing the position? So, that's a really simple model, but that's a model. Right? Yeah. And I think you have to have a model rather than a bunch of random techniques, I think it's nice to structure them.
100%. Yeah.
And also, Daniel, I think it's really important for people to remember what you teach them.
Otherwise, what's the point?
Otherwise, what's the point, right? So if you package it a way and you package it another way, in my experience, if you package it the right way, many more people can remember the entire seminar a year later. And if you package it the wrong way, no one remembers it Monday.
Yeah.
Yet the content might be the same. It's just that it wasn't in the right order. Maybe the ingredients were different. Like if I give you a recipe here and then the same recipe over here, but the ingredients are in a different order, that can turn out to be a disaster.
Yeah.
But you got to put the milk, then the eggs, and the butter. That
you got to do it in the right order. Yeah.
Because if you don't, there's going to be dramas.
Yeah.
And then you'll because you've got to get people to experience that. You've got to make them better. I mean, I'm only about making them better. They get some entertainment, or whatever along the way, but that's not why I'm there. I'm there. I'm only driven by outcomes. I want them to get better, and I want them to be better next week than before they saw me.
Yeah.
So I will do whatever it takes to make that happen. So that's why I put thought into it, and also I value people's time. Because I value my time, so I value people's time. So I don't just say, well, I'm here, therefore they should know. Well, they might have worked 8 hours to get the money to pay for the seminar, then drive there, then do the seminar. You add it all up, Daniel, it might be like, maybe that person traded 12 hours of their life. I better put my work, I better do work. I better put some thought into what I'm doing, because someone just gave me 12 hours of their life for that 2 hours. Oh my God. Really, wake up. Some people that are doing seminars should wake up and understand the deal that's going down here. And I don't think they do. They think that their mere presence in the room is enough. No. These are people's lives and time. You need to step up. Yes, you do need to respect that. So it's all comes from that point for me.
Yeah. And another thing, we'll finish off very soon. Just another thing with the seminars. I heard you line everyone up in a grid.
No, I don't do the grid, but I do believe in traffic going the same direction at the same time.
Okay.
For the same reason that it works on the roads. There's less deaths.
So you make everyone do the technique facing the same direction.
Yeah, so we're all oriented north-south.
Yeah.
And then what I'll do, here's a typical idea. Do you want a typical one? So I'm out there, I demonstrate something, an ankle pick. Right? Demonstrate a clinch, ankle pick. So there's about 6 or 7 points to that.
Yeah.
Right? So step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5. So I'll talk about it. I'll explain it. I'll get everyone in agreement. And then I get them all ready. Everyone's ready? All oriented north-south. Doesn't have to be lines, but oriented the same way. And then I'll talk one side through it, step by step by step. So you're not doing it yet. You've seen me do it, but I don't care. Let me drive you through it. Hold my hand like a child crossing the road.
Yeah.
Don't go ahead of me, and don't make me drag you across the road.
Yeah.
Stay with me until I talk you through it step by step by step by step. I do that until I look around enough times, might be 3 or 4 times, until I look around and see everyone's hitting all the points.
Yeah.
And then I'll say, go, rep it out.
Yeah.
And then you're on your own for a couple of minutes while I run around the mat and fix everyone. Then I'll tell you when to switch, and then I'll do exactly the same process again for the second person.
So do you use, you're saying north-south orientation, do you use, does that mean that you can say right hand moves to this side or that side and everyone because they're facing the same direction?
And see, if everyone's oriented in the same direction, if the traffic's going the right way, and I'm looking over a room of 50 people and someone's get an angle
you
wrong
can see it easy.
I can see it.
Okay.
I cannot see it if they're facing the wrong way.
Sure.
So to me, this may sound harsh, Daniel, but that means I don't care.
Yeah.
You know, I hate to diss everyone out there, but I want to see if someone's not stepping the right way or not doing it. I want to pick it up.
Yeah.
So I'm doing it for it's not for them.
You can see it.
It's all this is so that I can manage it.
Got it.
Look around and go, I see he's not doing it. He's got the wrong foot for it.
It's like a pattern recognition. You can look at a group, and if you see one thing out of place, it's very easy to see.
I can pick it up.
If it's just chaos, it's harder to see.
Yeah, but I can't see it. I'm not that good, right? Yeah. So I can see that and go, run over there, fix it. And, you have to do that. And everybody gets on board with that after your first 10 minutes. Everyone's on board, and they love doing it. And I see it, and then they go. Yeah. There's enough chaos when we're free rolling. Then it's all bets are off, right? Yeah. But not,
more structure.
There's no need to be chaotic. Yeah. Before we've got it right, and we have to get it right.
That's fine. Don't worry.
Because if you start repping the shit out of a technique before you've hit all the points, you're marrying that girl before dating her. Yeah. So I look at it like, if I want to rep a technique at speed, I can't do that until I'm assured that the version of it that I'm repping is the best possible version. Yeah. So I don't want to be hardwiring a substandard technique. That's like staggering into a bar drunk going, you'll do, babe, marry me. Yeah. Now you're going to have a problem later on. 100%. So I want to be very discerning about the girl that I marry, which I did with my wife. I married an awesome one. Go Spartans. So I'm the same way with the technique. Guys tend to want to crack on, especially fighters, right? They want to crack on. They go, whoa, that's not the best possible version of that. You're missing out half the ingredients. At least these white belts over here are listening to me because they know they don't know. Yeah. You don't know. And so I get everyone like that. And then we get results. Yeah, no, this is something that I teach in my seminars as well, which is when you're doing a technique, something as simple as like a guillotine setup. A lot of people, they'll move through half of the technique, the easy part of the technique quickly, and then they slow down when it gets a little bit fiddly. So their pace changes halfway through the movement. And if that happens when you try and do it at full speed, it just looks like shit. And people need to understand that. So I make people do it like ridiculously slow, like super slow-mo, Matrix, Baywatch, whatever, like super slow motion. And then if it's a good rep, you can increase the speed a little bit and then a bit more and a bit more. Because people have to understand that muscle memory doesn't know whether you've done a good technique or a bad technique. Yeah. Like whatever you, like the whole thing, like practice makes perfect is bullshit. Permanent. Perfect practice makes perfect, If the practice isn't right, then you're getting good at doing something wrong. So people do need to, exactly like you're saying, people need to actually slow everything down, make sure all of the movement's right, make sure everything's clean before they try and do it at full speed. Well, say for example, an example of that I do is, say we're hitting a basic double leg, so you drop your level, so you drop, step, penetration step, drop, step, and then fold the knee. So drop, step, fold, and and so forth and so forth. So when you break it down and make it slow, slow enough so they can understand each step, there's a price for everything. The price we pay for that is there's now pauses. We have woven as coaches pauses into the movement. So now when you say, okay, go, let's now go slow and stitch it all together. So there's no pauses. The pauses still reappear because that's what they've practiced. Yeah. So you have to actually get them to do it even slower when they start stitching it together. Yeah. To actually rewrite it, the engram in a different part of your brain so the pauses go away. Yeah. And then when they've got that smooth, then we say dial it up 5% speed. Exactly. If a pause rears its head, you have to slow it down. If there's no pause, dial it up 5%.
That's exactly what I say, yeah.
Right, there you go.
Yeah, awesome. Anyway, I know that you've got to shoot off. So we could just talk for hours, I think. Hopefully we can get another one in. Maybe when I come out to Australia, we can sit down and have a chat again. But I just want to say I really appreciate you coming and taking the time out of your schedule to sit down and have a chat with me.
I got to get to Venice. I'm meeting my wife for my holiday.
That's right. Okay, yeah.
Thanks very much.
No, my absolute pleasure, man. Cheers.
Thank you.
That is it, guys. I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you want to find out more about John, then you can check out his blog, which we referenced during the episode, which is bjj-australia.blogspot.com. As always, if you want to get in contact with the podcast, then you can email me at podcast@raspberryape.com. Check out my website, which is raspberryape.com. You can find me on social media, Instagram, mainly Instagram, but also Twitter if you're that way inclined, at raspberry_ape. I've also set up a new Instagram account specifically for the podcast. So I want you to get over there and I want you to like it. I'm going to be posting more stuff. I don't want to spam my usual account with podcast stuff. There'll still be some stuff on there, but I'm going to be starting to post clips, little short clips from different episodes and stuff like that. And if you can go and follow that, that is at Raspberry Ape Podcast on Instagram. I've also got my Facebook page back up running. So if you want to go onto Facebook and search for Raspberry Ape, you can follow me on that. Oh, my YouTube page is youtube.com/Raspberry Ape. That's pretty much everything. And if you're a fan of the podcast, since I'm rambling on at the end of this, might as well continue. If you're a fan of the podcast and you listen to this on iTunes, then I would appreciate you going over to iTunes and rating it and writing nice things about it, assuming that you have nice things to say about it. Because apparently it helps you get up in the charts and stuff like that. I don't know if that's actually true, but let's pretend that it is. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed the episode. I'm very thankful that you guys were a little bit patient. I know that I haven't got a podcast out for over a month now, but it's very difficult to do. You know, I've got to sit down with people in person. I'm not cheating and doing it over Skype and stuff. Not that that's a dig to anyone else. But thank you very much for waiting, and I appreciate you listening, and I will catch you next time. Take it easy.